The galaxy had seen wars before, great battles between mighty empires, but nothing like this was about to happen. Far from the busy trade routes, in the cold, dark space of Sector 9, a strange fleet waited in silence. They were human ships. Only 30 of them, lined up in perfect formation. Their dark metal hulls reflecting the faint light of a distant star, the ships did not move. They did not send any message. They simply waited. For days nothing happened until the Varkan Dominion arrived. The Varkan were feared across the galaxy, their empire stretching over hundreds of worlds, their armies crushing every enemy that stood against them. When their scouts found this small human fleet blocking their path, the Varkan commanders laughed. 30 ships, they said, nothing but prey waiting to be hunted. In the Varkan flagship, Admiral Korvath studied the humans on his screen. Primitive design, outdated hulls, he muttered. This will be over in minutes, his crew cheered, certain of an easy victory. But far away, aboard the human flagship Resolute, Admiral Kane stood calm. He watched the Varkan ships enter the sector, thousands of them, their massive battleships. Glowing with power, the humans had no flashy designs, no glowing banners, just silent steel and deadly purpose. When the Varkan fleet closed in, Kane gave a single order. Fire, he said. The void lit up. Beams of concentrated energy burst from human ships. Cutting through Varkan shields like they were made of thin paper, missiles streaked across space, moving faster than the enemy could track, striking engines, reactors, and weapons. Varkan ships exploded one after another. The enemy's formation broke, their confident charge slowing as panic spread. Admiral Korvath's smile vanished. Shields are failing, his officers cried. We have never seen weapons like this. The humans did not speak. They did not taunt. They kept firing, each shot precise, each hit destroying a target. By the first 15 minutes, 10 Varkan warships were gone. By 30 minutes, half the attacking force was burning in the void. The rest tried to retreat, but the humans had already predicted their escape routes. They were hunted down one by one. Admiral Kane stood on his bridge, hands behind his back, watching the destruction unfold without a word. This was not just a victory, this was a message. When the last Varkan ship jumped away, only fragments of their once proud fleet remained. The battle had lasted less than an hour. A single human fleet had crushed an enemy that had ruled the stars for centuries. In the silence that followed, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Word of the battle traveled fast, carried by traitors, mercenaries, and spies. They spoke of humans who fought like predators, whose weapons tore through the strongest. Shields whose fleets moved as if every ship shared one mind. Some refused to believe it, saying it was just a story. But those who had been there knew the truth. They had seen it with their own eyes. And deep within the Varkan Dominion, the warlords met in secret. One fleet, they said. It's only one fleet did this. If Earth had more, if Earth was preparing, then the Dominion might face an enemy unlike any they had ever known. Still, some dismissed it, calling it luck, but others, the ones who understood war, felt something they had not felt in years, fear and far away, in hidden shipyards across human space. The engines of more warships began to wake. The story of the battle in Sector 9 spread faster than light. It moved from the lips of frightened survivors to the ears of curious traders. From secret messages between spies to quiet talks in shadowy bars on distant worlds. The Varkan Dominion tried to control the news, but it was too late. Everyone had heard it. 30 human ships had faced thousands and won. Out on the dusty market world of Tharos, an old freighter captain told the tale to anyone who would listen. They moved like hunters, he said, his voice low. Their ships were silent until the moment they struck. And when they did, there was no escape. In a hidden station orbiting a gas giant, a group of mercenaries sat in disbelief. One of them, a scarred alien with 4 eyes, shook his head. No fleet fights like that. It's not unless they've trained for decades. Rumors grew wilder with every retelling. Some claimed the humans had stolen ancient technology from long-dead gods. Others said they were Deathworlders, creatures from a planet so dangerous that even their animals could kill a warrior.
Ow.
In the great halls of the Varkon capital, the council met in secrecy. The chamber was lit only by the pale glow of tactical maps. Admiral Korvath stood before them, his armor scorched from the battle. It was not luck, he said, his voice cold. They knew where we would move. They struck with weapons beyond our science. They did not hesitate. Some warlords growled in anger, calling for revenge. Others, older and wiser, stayed silent, their eyes troubled. If one fleet could do this, whispered Counselor Dravik, what will happen if they have more? The room fell quiet. The thought was dangerous. The Dominion had ruled for centuries because their enemies had always been weaker, slower, less prepared. But now, for the first time in living memory, they had met a foe who was none of those things. Still, the council decided to act. They would gather an even larger armada, enough to crush whatever the humans had left. The order was sent. Hundreds of ships were to be called back from patrols, refitted, and sent to the front. Meanwhile, out among the free worlds, traders whispered in dark corners. A human merchant on the fringe colony of Vera smiled when he heard the rumors. We told you not to underestimate us, he said softly, and you didn't listen. In deep space, aboard the human flagship Resolute, Admiral Kane listened to intercepted transmissions from across the galaxy. He knew the Varkan were coming again, and this time they would not make the mistake of sending a single wave. He also knew something the Varkan did not. The fleet in Sector 9 had been only a fraction of what Earth could field. Behind the borders of human space, great shipyards were busy day and night. Massive vessels, some as long as cities, were waking from their slumber. Engines roared for the first time in years. Hulls gleamed under floodlights, crews boarded in. Silence. Each ship was armed with weapons no alien had yet seen. Earth was not just preparing to defend itself, it was preparing to strike. Back in the Varkan capital, a low murmur filled the War Council chamber. We must destroy them before they grow stronger, said one warlord, slamming his fist against the table. We must make an example, another hissed, so that no one will dare defy the Dominion again. But in the corner, an old strategist spoke in a voice like gravel. Or we may be walking into a trap, he warned. For the humans we saw may only be the beginning. No one wanted to hear it. The council gave the order, and the great fleet began to move to our human space, yet across the stars, in places the Varkan had never seen. Human fleets were already in motion. They were shadows in the void, silent and unseen, waiting for the right moment to appear. And when they did, the galaxy would understand that one fleet was never the whole story. The Varkan Dominion believed they were the hunters. But far away, deep in human space, the real hunt was already being prepared. In the underground command center beneath the city of New Geneva, Admiral Kane stood before a massive star map. Dozens of glowing red markers showed Varkan fleets moving toward human borders. They were coming fast, gathering strength, confident they would crush whatever resistance was left. But Kane was calm, his hands behind his back, his eyes steady. He knew something the Varkan did not. The fleet they had faced in Sector 9 had been only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Earth's true strength had never been shown. For years, human shipyards had worked in secret, building vessels so advanced that even the closest allies of Earth had never seen them. Some were hidden in asteroid fields, their hulls disguised as rock. Some were buried beneath oceans on distant colonies, waiting for the signal to rise. Some had been drifting dark in deep space for decades, their crews in cryosleep, ready to wake when war came. Now, one by one, those ships were coming alive. Engines rumbled like distant thunder. Hangar doors opened, and weapons were powered. Up for the first time, on the colony world of Brighthold, massive dry dock released the Titan Spear, a warship so large it blotted out the sky as it lifted into orbit. On the frozen moon of Caldris, the stealth cruiser Phantom's Edge slid silently from beneath the ice, its black hull swallowing the starlight. Messages moved through encrypted channels, each one carrying the same order: prepare for deployment in the officers' quarters of the Resolute. Kane addressed his captains. They believe they are coming to end us, he said, his voice calm but cold. Instead, they are coming to meet the full force of Earth, far away, in the halls of the Galactic Council. Nervous whispers were spreading. Neutral species had watched the battle in Sector 9 with growing unease. If humans could destroy a Varkan armada with one fleet, what would happen if they unleashed more? Some council members urged peace talks, but others feared angering the Dominion. They stayed silent, waiting to see who would survive the coming storm. Meanwhile, in Varkan space, their war factories roared with life. New battleships were rushed into production, their crews drilled day and night. The Dominion's propaganda channels played constant messages of victory. They showed images of Varkan soldiers marching proudly, promising the people that humanity would soon be nothing but dust. But in private, their admirals remembered the cold precision of the human fleet. They remembered how quickly their own ships had died. That memory gnawed at them, even as they prepared for war. In a secret meeting aboard the Varkan flagship Bloodfang, Admiral Corveth studied new intelligence. Reports. Small human ships had been sighted far from their own territory. Always vanishing before they could be followed, supply convoys had been attacked by unknown vessels with impossible speed. And strange signals had been detected in sectors the Dominion had never considered important. It was as if the humans were everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Corveth leaned over the table, his claws tapping the metal surface. "They are moving," he growled. "We don't know how many fleets they have, or where they are hiding." Them, his second-in-command, hesitated, then asked the question they all feared. What if Sector 9 was only a warning? Corveth did not answer. Back in human space, Kane received word that the Varkan Armada had crossed the frontier. He stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching as one fleet after another appeared on the tactical display. Some were already in position to strike from the flanks. Others were moving to cut off the Varkan retreat before the battle even began. The storm was coming, but Kane was ready. He knew that once it broke, the galaxy would never be the same again. The Varkan Armada entered human space like a storm. Hundreds of warships surged forward, their engines burning bright against the black void. On their bridges, Varkan commanders spoke with confidence. They had been told this battle would be the final blow. They believed humanity would be crushed within days. From the flagship Bloodfang, Admiral Corveth gave the order to advance at full speed. He wanted the fight over quickly, so the Dominion could return to its expansion without fear. Far ahead, the familiar outline of the human fleet appeared. 30 ships again, the same number as in Sector 9. Corveth grinned when he saw them. This time, he growled, "There will be no miracle." But something felt different. The human ships did not retreat. They did not move to defensive positions. Instead, they held their place, as if waiting for something. Corveth ordered his fleet forward, weapons charged, targeting systems locked, the Varkan ships prepared to fire. Then the darkness around the human fleet seemed to ripple. One by one, massive ships emerged from the void. First, a second human fleet appeared behind the first. Then a third fleet came from the shadow of a nearby moon. Varkan officers shouted. In shock, before they could adjust their formation, more human ships arrived. A fourth fleet, then a fifth, then a sixth. Each one sliding into position with perfect coordination. Corveth's tactical display began to flash red with danger alerts. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. In less than 5 minutes, the humans had tripled their numbers. By the 10th minute, they had completely surrounded the Varkan Armada. Kane's voice came through the comms, calm and steady. "You came here to destroy us," he said, "but you've walked into our net." Before the Varkan could respond, the humans struck. The first volley of human fire ripped through the Dominion's front line. Their shields shattered instantly, hulls breaking apart in blinding explosions. The Varkan tried to return fire, but the humans moved like predators. Every time a Varkan ship turned to aim, a human vessel was already at its flank, tearing it apart from the bridge of the Resolute. Admiral Kane watched the battle unfold. He gave few orders because every captain already knew their role. They had trained for this moment for years. In the chaos, another wave of human fleets emerged from hyperspace. The 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. The sight froze the Varkan commanders where they stood. One fleet had terrified the galaxy. Now 10 were here, fighting as one. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks. Some captains tried to retreat, but hyperspace. Exit points were already blocked by human ships. Others fought desperately. But their weapons could not pierce human armor fast enough. The battle became a slaughter on the Varkan flagship. Admiral Corveth slammed his fist into the console. "They planned this," he roared. "We were never the hunters, we were the prey." Kane's fleets pressed forward without mercy, targeting the command ships first, the moment a Varkan flagship was destroyed. The smaller ships under its control began to fall apart. One by one, Dominion formations crumbled in the middle of the battle. Kane opened a private channel to Corveth. "This war ends today," he said simply. Corveth stared at the human admiral, rage and disbelief in his eyes. Then the connection cut. Minutes later, the Bloodfang took a direct hit to its reactor, vanishing in a blinding explosion without. Their leader, the remaining Varkan ships, broke completely. Some were destroyed, others were captured, and a few managed to escape, but only to carry the tale of their defeat. When the last shot was fired, the void was littered with burning wreckage. The second clash was over, and the Dominion had lost far more than ships. They had lost their fearlessness. And across the galaxy, every ruler, every council, and every warlord now knew the truth. Humanity's strength had only just begun to show. The wreckage of the Varkan Armada drifted silently in space. Fire still burned inside shattered hulls, and pieces of broken ships spun slowly in the cold void. Human fleets moved among the debris, scanning for survivors and securing the battlefield. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kane stood before the main display. His officers waited for his next order, but instead of speaking to his own crew, Kane opened a channel not just to the remaining Varkan ships but to the entire galaxy. A holographic projection of Kane's face appeared in military command centers, on spaceport screens, in news hubs, and even on backwater colony bars where traders still whispered about Sector 9. His voice was calm, steady, and dangerous. "You thought one fleet was all we had," he began, "but you were never fighting our true strength behind him." The image changed to a galactic star map. Glowing points of light appeared across it, each one representing a human fleet. Not one, not two, but 10 massive fleets, already in position across the galaxy. The light spread outward, showing human ships near trade routes, hidden in asteroid belts, guarding hyperspace exits, and positioned right outside Varkan territory. "This war," Kane continued, "was not something we walked into unprepared. We have been building for years, watching, learning, waiting for the moment you would make your move." Gasps echoed in council chambers across the galaxy as the map zoomed in on each fleet, titans of steel, carriers as large as cities, stealth cruisers cloaked in shadows, and destroyers armed with weapons that even the most advanced alien empires had never seen. Everywhere the image shifted, there was the same message. The humans were already there. On the Varkan flagship Dagger's roar, the new acting commander stared at the broadcast in disbelief. It was not just the number of fleets that shocked him, but their positioning. It was perfect. A net already woven around their empire, on the Galactic Council homeworld. Leaders who had once doubted humanity now leaned forward in silence. Some felt relief. Perhaps these humans could stand against the Dominion once and for all. Others felt fear, because if humanity had the power to break the Dominion, they also had the power to challenge anyone. Kane's image returned, his eyes sharp. "The Dominion came to destroy us," he said. "But now, they'll answer for every life they've taken, every world they've burned." He did not raise his voice, yet every word carried the weight of a promise. "This is not defense anymore," Kane said. "This is the end of your war." As the broadcast ended, the galaxy erupted into chaos. In markets, people shouted and argued on warships. Officers scrambled to reassess strategies. In the Varkan capital, the council chamber was filled with shouting voices. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for a final stand. But deep down, they all knew they could not face 10 human fleets at once. Back on the Resolute, Kane turned to his crew. "We move to Phase 2, he said simply. Across the galaxy, human fleets began to advance. They moved like a tide, coordinated to strike at multiple targets at the same time. Supply lines, shipyards, and communication hubs inside the Dominion began to go dark one after another. It was not just war, it was dismantling an empire. Piece by piece, and with every victory, the galaxy's fear of humanity grew. Not because humans were cruel, but because they had shown a truth everyone else had forgotten, the quiet ones. The underestimated ones were often the most dangerous, and now they were in control of the battlefield. The Varkan Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries, but now their empire was cracking every day. Human fleets struck deeper into their territory. It was not random, it was precise. Shipyards went silent, supply routes vanished, and communication hubs burned. The Dominion's proud banners, once seen across 1,000 worlds, were being torn down one by one on the Varkan capital world of Dravik Prime. The council chamber was a storm of chaos. Generals argued over defense lines, warlords shouted for vengeance, and ministers begged for peace. The air was thick with fear for every fleet the Dominion sent out. 2 more human fleets were already waiting. Reports came in from the frontier. Worlds' colonies gone silent, garrisons destroyed, entire planets surrendering without a fight. The people of the Dominion had believed they were untouchable. Now, for the first time in living memory, they were afraid. In the war room of the human flagship Resolute, Admiral Kane studied the map. Red markers showed the Dominion's remaining strongholds. Each day, the red faded as human fleets captured another sector. His officers reported victory after victory, but Kane's expression never changed. He knew the war was not truly over until the heart of the Dominion was broken. In space above the industrial world of Kelrath, a massive battle raged. 3 human fleets moved in perfect unison, cutting through the Dominion defenders. Kelrath's shipyards had built warships for centuries, but now they were burning. The loss sent shockwaves through the Varkan leadership. Admiral Korvath was gone. Their best fleets destroyed, and their strongest shipyards in ruins. Still, some in the Dominion refused to surrender. They called for one final stand, the defense of Dravik Prime itself. It was a desperate plan, but pride blinded them. Human intelligence already knew of their preparations. Kane did not wait for them to strike. Instead, he ordered the largest coordinated attack in human history. 10 fleets moved at once, converging on the Dominion capital from all directions. In the Varkan skies, the night turned to fire. The first human volleys shattered the outer defenses in minutes. Varkan ships fought back, but their formations were broken almost immediately. The humans pushed forward like an unending wave. Civilians on the planet watched in horror as the sky filled with streaks of burning wreckage. Inside the council chamber, the warlords argued until the walls shook from the force of the bombardment.
Alas.
The oldest counselor, Dravik, stood and slammed his staff against the floor. "This is the end," he said. "If we fight, our worlds will burn. If we surrender, at least our people will live." Some roared in protest. But the truth could not be denied. The Dominion had lost. A message was sent to the Resolute, requesting terms. When Kane received it, he did not smile. "This war was your choice," he replied. "Your surrender will be ours." The terms were simple: complete disarmament, the release of all enslaved species, and the dismantling of the Dominion's ruling council. There was no room for negotiation. Faced with total destruction, the Varkan agreed. The surrender was broadcast across the galaxy. Worlds that had lived in fear for generations celebrated as the Dominion's flag was lowered. In the streets of liberated planets, people cheered when human fleets passed overhead. They knew the empire that had ruled them with iron claws was gone, and they knew who had ended it in the silent void above Dravik Prime. Kane stood on the bridge, looking out at the defeated world below. The war was over, but the memory of it would last for centuries. 1 fleet had been enough to terrify them. 10 fleets had been enough to break them forever. The war was over, but the galaxy was not the same. The Varkan Dominion, once the greatest power in known space, was now only a shadow of its former self. Its fleets had been dismantled, its weapons destroyed, and its council dissolved. Worlds that had lived under its iron rule were now free. But freedom came with questions. Who would lead now? Who would protect the peace? The answer, whispered in markets and broadcast in council halls, was always the same. Humanity on Earth. Celebrations filled the streets. People cheered as returning fleets arrived, their massive ships passing over cities like silent guardians. Yet in the human command center, there was no celebration for Admiral Kane. He knew that victory brought responsibility. The galaxy was watching, and any mistake now could turn allies into enemies. In the weeks after the surrender, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered on the neutral station of Arcadia Prime. It was the first galactic assembly not controlled by the Dominion. Leaders from liberated planets came to thank humanity, merchants came to seek trade agreements, and old enemies came to make sure Earth's rise to power would not become another empire. Kane stood before them, not in ornate robes or crowns, but in his simple admiral's uniform. He spoke plainly, his voice carrying through the great hall. Humanity did not fight to rule, said. We fought to live, and to make sure no one else suffers what we faced. Some leaders were relieved, others skeptical. But Kane's fleets, now stationed across the galaxy, made sure no one forgot the power behind his words. On liberated worlds, human ships patrolled the skies, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Trade routes reopened, pirate fleets vanished, and old rivalries were forced into peace by the presence of the new power. Still, there were whispers. Some feared that one day, the humans might decide they liked ruling after all. Others believed Earth's rise was the best thing to happen to the galaxy in centuries. On the Varkan homeworld, the once-proud warriors walked through quiet streets under the gaze of human peacekeepers. Their children grew up hearing stories of the day. 10 human fleets surrounded their armada. Some told those stories with bitterness. Others told them with respect in the Galactic Council chamber. A new seat was created, the Central Defense Chair. It was offered to humanity, and Kane himself was chosen to hold it. His first act was to create the Alliance Defense Pact. Every member world agreed that if any power tried to conquer another, the full strength of the pact would answer. The message was clear. Never again would the galaxy fall under one empire's cruel hand. Months passed, and slowly the scars of war began to heal. New trade bloomed between worlds that had once been enemies. Scientific teams from different species worked together on shared projects, and for the first time in centuries, there was a sense of cautious hope. In his private quarters aboard the Resolute, Kane looked out at the stars. He knew peace would not last forever. Somewhere, someone would rise again and try to take what was not theirs. But now, the galaxy was different now. It knew the truth. Humans were not weak, not helpless, and never alone. One fleet had been enough to terrify their enemies. 10 fleets had been enough to shatter an empire. And if the day ever came when more were needed, Earth would be ready. The stars outside his window burned bright, and Kane allowed himself the smallest of smiles. The galaxy had a new order now, and humanity stood at its center, not as tyrants, but as the ones who had changed everything.